ReefDudes is sponsored by Ecotech Marine and Bulk Reef Supply. Today we're checking out the all-new AI Orbit. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. Now last week we covered the Access, the all-new return pump from AI, and now today we're going to check out the Orbit, which is the all-new cross-flow or gyre style pump. So let's get to it. So taking a look in the box, we got the cross-flow pump itself. This is the Orbit 4 controller. We got our power supply. Now this guy does come with a bunch of different adapters, so you can use it for different regions. We got our back magnet and some Velcro. So this is basically everything you get with the Orbit 4. Power supply is 24 volts, 2 amps, and max of 48 watts. Now, so this is the big boy. This is the Orbit 4. There is also a smaller version called the Orbit 2. Now, this gives you a little bit of a comparison of the difference in the size profile between the two. The Orbit 2, they rate it for tanks around 20 to 80 gallons plus. This guy draws about 25 watts. This guy draws about 45 watts. The Orbit 2 works on about 15 mil glass, and the Orbit 4 works on 20 mil glass, I believe. Now, they do normally both come with the teal AquaIllumination color impellers. This one is black on it, but that's because it was a pre-production model, one of the ones I was beta testing before. But kind of gives you a look of the two different sizes of the pump. Now, if you've used a Nero before, it's going to be a very similar interface. You're going to have that random, the pulse, the constant, and I guess the different mode on this would be reverse. Again, you can program it, do your feed modes, all that fun stuff. But now the part that I'm sure a lot of you are curious about is how does it actually perform? I'm going to pop the Orbit 4 into my 6-foot tank and turn off my MP60s and run it off just this, and we'll see how the flow looks. So let's get to it. So I unplugged both my MP60s, so the only pump running in the tank right now is the Orbit 4. Now I mounted this on the overflow tower. Really is the best spot to put it in a peninsula tank, and I moved it down just enough so that it's not sucking water from the surface. See the odd little bubble? So I still might have to move it down a smidge more, but it seems to be a pretty good spot for it. Now to add it to the app, so we're going to open Mobius and go to add a device, and it should find our Orbit 4, and it's just on constant mode, and just want to see how it does in the tank. Looking down the tank, it definitely got some good movement in the torches, so there's some good flow traveling, you know, down the 6 feet length of the tank. Good movement in the gonnies. Right at the 6-foot end, there's a little bit of movement in my Gorgonian. Not crazy amounts, but definitely do see it shaking in the flow a bit, so pretty solid for constant flow. So I'm going to try moving it to, let's try random. That's usually what I go for on most pumps, is random mode. So let's do random, and let's do it, we'll say 80 to 100. Get some proper random flow in the tank. Now, an interesting thing, I've never tried running in reverse, but they do have a reverse or forward direction, so I'm curious to see how that affects things running in reverse. I suppose you could probably swap the propellers as well, or the impellers rather, to get kind of the full power of it, but surprisingly, still see the full water column rocking in reverse as well, which is pretty cool. Definitely not as much flow because reverse is never as intense, and you can see they're a lot more subtle in the gonnies over here. So let's kick it back to forward because that's the way the impellers are currently set up for, and you can start to see stuff starting to shake again. There you go, as all the pulses start making their way through the water column. And yeah, definitely getting some good flow. So as a bit of a flow test, I'm going to pour in some oyster eggs from Reef Nutrition. So they're kind of going to work like my little flow beads. You can kind of see how far. There's lots of concentration around the 3 to 4 foot mark, and it kind of teeters a little bit around that 5-6, but the flow is definitely making it the distance. So over at the 6-foot end, you can see the flow making it all the way to the end. It starts to circle it around, and if you do look at the bottom, you can start to see some of it starting to trail backwards and be sucked back up and create that gyre motion within the tank. Kind of get sucked in and pushed all around. So if you guys ever want to do a flow test, the oyster eggs from Reef Nutrition are kind of awesome to really get a good visual of the flow in the tank. Plus you get some good fish food in there. Actually a bit interesting looking where the flow is. You can almost see like it shoots down a little bit. So it's kind of a good way. I'm going to tweak the fins a bit and see if I can put it up a smidge and see how that affects it. So tweaking them up just a smidge definitely added a lot of surface agitation. You can really see the waves kind of rocking along the edge of the tank. And same thing at the far end of the peninsula. There's a lot of really good movement in there. Now this is on constant speed 100%, so it is making that gyre style motion within the tank. but tons of surface habitation. If I check out all the torches, they're definitely boogieing in the flow. If you look at the gonnies, solid movement there. If we come back over to the rock flowers, they're definitely doing a bit of a shimmy. If we take a look at the Gorgonian, you can definitely see he's doing a little bit of a wiggle. Not nearly as intense, obviously, at the 6-foot end, but he's definitely doing some good movement as well. See the tentacles of the plate in the background. The torches at that kind of, I'm going to say, 4.5, 5-foot mark are really boogieing. And again, I have a lot of coral that would be toning it down by the time it actually makes it to the 6-foot end. Now, if we look back a little bit closer, you can definitely see the tentacles swing on the undertow current. So yeah, the gyre definitely puts out some good flow going the distance, especially on a 6-foot tank. While doing these tests, I also noticed that it's extremely quiet. I can hear the tiniest little through the water, but barely at 100%. So definitely is approved on the noise level as well. So as you can see, this has been well used. There is lots of core line, lots of stuff built up. So I haven't actually cleaned these yet. So I'm curious to see how they are to come apart. Historically, cleaning gyres has always been a bit of a pain in the butt for me. Looks like these come apart really easy though, so that was a nice surprise. Same thing if I go look at this guy, Orbit 2, the impeller pops off pretty easy. And yep, so it comes off really easy. They are keyed, so you can't really mess up and put it on the wrong way, so that's promising. Oh, so there you go. So cleaning is pretty dang easy. I'm going to fill this up with some water and citric acid, let it soak for a bit, we'll give it a scrub, and get them back to pristine. Another thing that I might try one day, I would be curious to try 2 of them vertically on the tank and see how it kind of circles around it, but that might be a future experiment. But for now, one on top of the overflow, shooting along the end of the tank. It's going to add a lot of surface variation to the tank on top of the MP60s. Again, this is just the Orbit on right now. The MP60s are unplugged. And when I add everything in, it's going to be a lot of flow, which is going to be awesome for all the acros. We'll definitely be happy campers. Now, if you caught the live stream last week with Paul and Jay, you're going to know, like, yes, we did talk about it. These are licensed through MaxSpec for the actual pump design, since MaxSpec holds the patent on it. So the pump itself is going to be very similar to what MaxSpecs are. But the biggest difference really comes down to the driver, which is this lovely little guy here, which is going to be similar that you're going to see on like the Neros or the Axis pumps. Now the difference here is this driver is going to let you control it through Bluetooth, through My AI, through Mobius, and if you have an MXM module, then again you control it through your Apex. Now potentially you might even be getting more flow out of it, or could potentially be quieter, because how the pump is driven makes a big difference. So that is really going to be one of the biggest differentiators between like this and say the MaxSpec, is how much control you have over it, all the different platforms you can use with it, and all the integration that comes along with it. So if you're already in the ecosystem of, you know, the Mobius, My AI, or Neptune, it really does make a lot of sense. So it's a really cool addition to the Flow family. Alright guys, I'm going to plug in my MP60s again and get the tank back to rocking. I am pretty impressed with how much flow I'm getting with just the one gyre. Like if I was starting out a tank, I would probably just add the one gyre is to start things out, and you know, the tank's going to be rocking with one single pump. Save you a bunch of money, great way to go. You can always add more as things grow in. But yeah, really solid flow for just the one Orbit 4 in the tank. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this kind of initial review / 1 month thoughts, takes on the Orbit 4. So pretty cool pumps. As always guys, if you enjoyed this, hit that like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the next video.